Hey guys, welcome to another episode of SOS VHS.
Wait. You're not fancy. What's going on?
It's okay, skeleton producer.
That's Mr. Skeleton Producer to you.
All right, well this week things are a little different, okay? Usually you're used to having guests come on and talk about their favorite movies, but this week we unleashed Andres, aka Fancy B, to completely nerd out on, you got it, Jurassic Park. Enjoy the show.
Da-na-na, da-na-na, woo! Na-na-na, da-da, ba-ba, chill!
Hey guys, I'm in one of my favorite places in the world, a movie theater, and I'm gonna watch one of the best movies ever made, definitely one of my favorites of all time. It's Jurassic Park. It's its 30th anniversary, and it's back in movie theaters. So, pen and paper so we can do an SOS VHS episode after this. Please come with me, join me on an adventure that took 65 million years in the making. So excited. Let's go.
So guys, I got a little opening bit since we're doing Jurassic Park. You guys ready?
Yes.
Yeah.
Starting with Carlos, I want everyone to do their best Jeff Goldblum laugh from the movie.
All right.
Carlos, you're up.
All right. My best Jeff Goldblum,
Yeah.
aka my best Rick Glassman. What does he do? He goes, he kind of like growls like,
He does the when he says the dinosaurs for the first time.
oh, that's right.
Yeah, he's laughing.
Or when he's doing the water thing,
Yeah.
the helicopter, and it like drips and it's like chaos,
The chaos.
physics, or
Exactly.
something like that.
Chaos theory.
Yeah, chaos theory is so cool. He's like,
Andres, do you know the laugh?
No. Which moment?
The moment
Helicopter.
where he goes, so you two dig up dinosaurs?
Oh yeah. True. It actually was a moment where everybody in the theater laughed.
did they laugh now? Or I don't think they would have laughed in 1994 or 3.
93.
Yeah, so things are funnier now in the theater.
Right. I mean, it holds up. That's the first thing I want to say. It's
Okay.
incredible. But let me tell you a little story. I came to the U.S. for the first time in 93.
Yeah.
And my parents had friends in Connecticut, and I came to visit. And I went to see this movie in the theaters. I didn't understand a word of English, so I couldn't. But I remember being completely fascinated by it and kind of following the story along with just the visuals.
A sign of a good movie.
Yeah.
That you don't need the dialogue.
Right.
It's like film school 101.
Yes. And then I went back to Spain, and then they released it there a few months later, and I rewatched it, and it was like, incredible.
What was it called there?
It was called the same thing.
Okay.
Just translated Parque Jurásico. But yes, it was the same. They didn't come out with a weird title.
Well, in Mexico City, when I saw Twister, it was called Tornado.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the hell is this?
Right.
Is this like, is Bill Pullman or Paxton in this? Is this the
Yeah.
with Bill?
They usually translate, and sometimes they come out with weird titles.
Yeah.
When the translation is not significant.
Exactly. But I think this was like an international.
Yeah. I mean, but yeah, this movie was... so I feel like Spielberg, 1975, he was 26, he makes Jaws.
Insane.
He transforms the third movie. The whole movie industry becomes completely different after that. The blockbuster was invented, the summer thing. 20 years later, he's in his 40s. He does Jurassic Park, and the whole industry changes again. It's the first movie that uses CGI to this extent. The moment that this movie... So the movies of this year that started the year at the top of the box office were things like Home Alone, And at the end of the... I'm saying in the 90s, sorry. The beginning of the 90s, it was like Home Alone. Those type of movies were top of the box office. At the end, it was all CGI movies like Matrix and...
Independence Day.
Right. So
Even like Sleepless in Seattle beforehand.
Exactly. So he transformed the whole industry again. George Lucas did like the prequels after seeing what was, what he could do with CGI.
That's right. With Phantom Menace and
Kubrick designed AI. He didn't direct it at the end because he died, but like the idea of like, okay, now this whole new world is possible of like,
it's wild.
And now all the all the Marvel stuff, right? Like
but it still stands to this day. Like that CGI is so beautiful.
It's incredible. I think there is only 8 minutes of CGI in the movie.
Wow.
Something like that, because they still build the dinosaurs, the animatronics, they like close up. And I think that holds up so well because you can see the actors interacting with the...
Do you think it froze at that time in the 90s that freezing it would be good to this day compared to like another Marvel movie?
Absolutely. I feel like because heavy CGI movies age so, our eyes get used to the new thing and...
Exactly, like Polar Express. It looks like a PlayStation 2 game now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like most movies, even if you see Titanic, which is another hit from this time.
7, yeah.
Yeah. So a few years later, the CGI shots are the ones that stand out. Everything else, like the models, the paintings, all of that... is like you go unnoticed, but the CGI, the big CGI effects is like, a little video gamey.
Yeah, even like Titanic, when it like transitions from the underwater to like, oh, we're going back 100 years.
Right.
I'm like, oh, this looks like Red Dead Redemption 1.
Yes, yeah, but because those things age so quickly.
Yeah.
But because he was forced, so I think when they were designing the movie, the team that were doing the special effects were 2 teams, right? One, building the animatronics, the other one doing stop motion.
Oh, wow.
Because they didn't know that CGI was an option.
Yeah.
So then the Industrial Light and Magic was, watch this. And they saw a T-Rex.
Holy shit.
Like, shot. Yeah. And everybody was like, holy moly, like the future. They realized like, cool. That's going to be the future.
And the stop motion people were like, I need to pay my rent somehow.
Exactly. Out of a job. All the work they did.
That's what we did as kids on our video camera.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all of that was gone and that art form kind of like disappeared. I mean, you see certain movies here and they like Pinocchio.
80s. Yeah.
Like the
latest Pinocchio, everyone hated it. I loved it.
Yeah.
I thought
it was great, but it was like stop motion, but it's kind of gone. I think, yeah. So
is it real stop motion? Maybe he did real stop motion, but I feel like a lot of stop motion is like they do it a little bit.
No. The whole Pinocchio was done stop motion. The thing is like now the landscapes and all of that are digital, but yeah.
I see. So it's stop motion on a green screen.
Yeah.
How interesting.
They built certain parts of the set. It's beautiful to see.
I loved it.
Yeah.
It was so good. Just speaking of green screen, one of my most favorite moments in being in LA was me and Esther Pavitsky. We went to see a screening of Pitch Perfect, like in whenever that came out.
Yeah.
By Kay Cannon.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she was dating Jason Sudeikis at this time. And we go to Universal like on a Friday night to watch the screening. And afterwards we walk around the studio. And this is only one of the times, me and Esther have spent many times on Universal's lot walking around. Like we've been to the Jaws thing on our own and Psycho. But this was actually really special. We went into one of the big studio, I always forget.
Soundstage?
Yeah, one of the big sound stages. And it was like this big green screen with like an apocalyptic city. And we don't know what movie it was, but we know that we were on the set of like a huge Hollywood movie, like a Jurassic Park.
Right.
And seeing the green screen and all like the cityscape destroyed, but it's like foam. And so it like falls over easily.
Of course.
What a beautiful thing. That was such a special night in my life.
Yeah. I mean, and when they were doing this movie, like you see something behind the scenes I remember watching as my dad and I own the DVD, first the VHS, then the DVD, and they have those extras, and you see actors, and you see, there's gonna be a big dinosaur there. And it's the first time for these actors to do something like that.
Oh yeah, it must have been crazy for them. And now the Marvel movies, they just live in Atlanta and act in front of a green screen.
they are used to that. It's a new art form of like acting in front of nothing.
Must be so hard.
Yeah.
Ironically, you have to be like Marlon Brando today to be in front of those green screens.
Totally. But yeah, I mean, I just watched it in the theaters, and the first thing is like the movie theater was packed, which I think a lot of nostalgic
But that's
people.
wild.
And it holds up. I think, I mean, this is a guy in the peak of his superpowers.
Spielberg, yeah.
Yeah, he did this movie and did Schindler's List the same year.
It's insane.
They got released both in the same year.
The range is unreal.
What's up?
The range of that is unreal.
Yeah.
From Jurassic Park to Schindler's List, unbelievable.
Incredible.
What comes to mind is Apatow doing Knocked Up and Superbad the
Yeah.
same year. I'm like, I feel like...
Also, his pick. I feel like that there is
Exactly.
no better year like that. When a director can do something like that. Like Soderbergh did Traffic and Erin Brockovich the same year.
99. That was a big influential year for me with
Yeah.
Soderbergh. And it's funny, we were at Bad Friends one day. I don't think you were there yet, but Andrew was like, I just talked to Steven Soderbergh. And then the strike happens. And I'm
Right.
like, oh, what was that for?
Yeah.
I was obsessed with Steven Soderbergh. Like,
Yeah.
just in Traffic, the idea of like, oh, Michael Douglas is in a car and it's backing out of the driveway, and then it jump cuts like 30 frames to like him a little
Yeah.
farther in the driveway. I was like, holy shit, a Hollywood movie did a weird edit for no reason.
He's very experimental in that way. I like him too, but I feel like there's no one like Steven Spielberg.
Hell no.
To me, like, even if you like grittier movies or like your taste is a little more like in terms of like someone with skill, I think he's unmatched. I think maybe Hitchcock back then, Kubrick, him.
Yes.
I don't think there's many people in like shooting. So he was shooting this movie.
Mm-hmm.
He edited. As he's editing this movie, he's reading the script of it's a script that he's been developing for 10 years. Martin Scorsese had this property for a while, like Schindler's List.
Okay.
And he had Cape Fear, so they switch.
Oh, cool.
I think
Good switch.
Scorsese needed like a Hollywood thing, and Spielberg wanna, I feel like Scorsese felt like a Jewish person needed to tell that story.
Of course.
And so developed the script for 10 years. He's written the script with his wife. At this point, he had married like
Yeah.
his...
That's what I love about Spielberg. He has many wives. I'm like, he's still a Hollywood guy.
No, I mean, he married Kate Shub, whatever.
I don't know
her
the
name
names. Yeah.
Is the start of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Oh, okay.
She ruined that movie. She ruined it.
Skeleton, it's okay.
No, she ruined it.
I feel like you were in that movie.
There's a Family Guy joke where Stewie is short round, and Steven Spielberg's wife is like, Indy, and then Stewie goes, lady only here because she humping director.
I never stood out as something bad. I like her in that movie, but anyway.
I did too, but I was a kid when I saw it.
Yeah.
So it's like anything that they say is in the movie is good to me.
Yeah.
But now I think I do see how different she is than the other Indiana Jones characters.
Sure.
one and three.
It's a slightly different Indiana Jones, but in any case, like, well, they're both reading the script.
Yeah.
He reads it, he finishes puts it down and said, like, I need to make this movie right now. I'm not going to wait another year. The winter in Poland, because I need the snow, I'm going to go there.
Yeah.
To the sites where the Holocaust happened.
What a luxury.
This is in like a couple months. So he calls George Lucas. He calls Kathleen Kennedy, who's his longtime producer, and say, "Hey, I need to jump ship. I cannot finish Jurassic Park. I need to do Schindler's List. I just need to." So he calls George Lucas and say, "Hey, can you finish the movie for me?" And at this point, he needs sound mixing, color correction.
It's a whole thing.
A couple, kind of like the picture's lock, but the final, I think sound mixing and sound editing and color correction, something like that. So George Lucas said, okay, I'll do that. By the way, that movie won best sound, all
Who
of that.
got the Oscar? Was it Lucas?
Well, he supervised it. The team.
Yeah, the team's got the Oscars.
And this guy like jumps to shoot the other movie.
Yeah.
Immediately, completely different tone, like, I think like I don't know. For me, it's like the if you could have that superpower of being like a director with that ability, that would be
Reminds me of athletes.
Yeah.
You can play in the snow the next week,
Yeah.
and I always try and think of like basketball
Yeah, I mean, he's the Michael Jordan of filmmaking.
Yeah, I always like to think that like basketball is like a game of life where like cheating and being like maneuvering and political and like savvy gets you your way, whereas football is a game of war. But that makes me think of basketball. Spielberg can play like a game the next week that is totally different from the game before.
Yeah.
And that's what like people like LeBron James can do, which is very rare. That's fascinating.
Yeah, and the 94, the Oscars, I mean, he obviously won all the, I guess, important awards with one movie and all the technical awards with the other movie.
And Forrest Gump wins Best Picture. Is that the 95?
That's the following year.
Okay.
Yeah.
What wins in 94?
Oscars in 94 are the movies of 93.
That's what I was thinking.
Spielberg, like
I see.
all Schindler's List and Jurassic Park. So he's the big,
and then
winner of
Forrest Gump wins 96.
Forrest Gump
March.
and Pulp Fiction are next year.
That's right. And Pulp
So
Fiction.
I've always said something about Steven Spielberg. Let me know if you agree with this on Dress.
Yeah.
On the spectrum of big box office success and art, I feel like Steven Spielberg is one of those few directors that have both and have accomplished, big box office success and art at the same time, which is incredibly difficult to do, right? Incredibly difficult. Either have some art house film that makes no money that gets an Oscar, or you have a Michael Bay explosion movie that makes a lot of money. And Steven Spielberg did both.
Skeleton, you know a lot about movies.
Yeah, yeah, he's a movie buff, a movie bone.
I die for movies.
You died for movies.
But
I gave my life.
I agree that, I mean, there is that, I think we mentioned it in the show before, the generation that was born in the late 50s and 60s and who made movies in the 70s.
Yeah.
They're called the movie brats. Right,
Brian
like
De Palma,
the Godfather is like is the Godfather director, right? Coppola is the oldest one and the one who helps George Lucas make American Graffiti. Brian De Palma is doing his things like Scorsese, right? So in the span of like
right after Priesthood, right? Or right after he drops out.
Out of the seminary school. Yeah. So in the 75 is Jaws. 76 is Taxi Driver. 78 is Star Wars.
Insane.
78 is also Close Encounters. 79 Apocalypse Now.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite. I think that's one of my top 3 movies, Apocalypse Now. Like, even like, I think about, like, there's certain scenes that I can relate to in every parts of my life. Like, even finding the puppy.
Yeah.
I think about that.
It's a movie. It's crazy that movie even exists.
It is.
But yeah.
Sofia Coppola being there as a baby. I mean, obviously, I've seen Heart of Darkness.
It's one
of the most incredible movies I've ever seen. I mean, just to say something about Apocalypse Now, I always think it's the perfect analogy of a psychedelic trip. As you go deeper and deeper into the jungle down there, you experience madness and you have to break through.
It's crazy, and that's another movie that we could like really dive deep into.
I'm obsessed with that.
It's a great movie, and it's John Milius writing that movie. So, and that was a movie that was developed by George Lucas to be shot by George Lucas, and then because Star Wars anyway, but that generation of people, I think they're all in artists who were able to make blockbusters.
So cool.
I think Spielberg is the only one who remained always at that level of like, because Scorsese will make like grittier movies. I think taste, some people prefer that type of movie.
Yeah.
But in terms of box office hits and movies that were going to be like Oscar winners, I think there's nobody like Spielberg.
Yeah, I wonder, that seems to me so deliberate. Like, we know people in show business who, like, Scorsese feels like a guy who's like again, I'll bring it to basketball, a player who when he's been really good and he's won championships, but he'll play for a shitty team to make them better.
Yeah.
Whereas Spielberg feels like, I'm never leaving the Lakers.
Right.
I'm only going to...
Spielberg is Kobe.
Exactly. I really feel that way. And like Shaq
Kobe.
is Scorsese, where he's like, I'll go to the Suns, I'll go to the Celtics.
I think the reality with all these people is they were really very different outlooks at life. They grew up completely different. Scorsese said like, when digital started, they were asking him like, how do you want the sky? Do you want to? This guy's like, hey, I grew in New York. I never saw the sky. Like I'm not Spielberg who grew up in Arizona and looking at the sky, and therefore like I think their outlooks in life, like Spielberg, like I guess like people who don't like their movies, they don't like that he's, I guess like very optimistic or there is sentimental.
I like it.
That type of thing that even so Terry Gilliam used to say it about Schindler's List, like that Schindler's List is a movie about success while the Holocaust was about failure, a failure system. But even like the movie, it is about this one guy who actually saves this amount of people. So there is that hope. Yeah. To me, that's the only palatable way to deal with that subject matter. You know, it's like everything is horrible, but at least even in the worst case scenario, there's always some humanity.
What's the other movie option? For
it's just like you want to just cut your veins and die.
It's so sad.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
But
my mom always talked about Schindler's List when I was a kid. She was like, he would like his classmates were mean to him. Like, she always told me she wanted me to because we grew up in Catholic school, and she was like, remember the Jews, you got to be nice. Like,
but were you obsessed with dinosaurs when you were a kid? I feel like almost every boy was. Yeah,
I was born in '87. And Jurassic Park was one of my most influential movies in getting me to Hollywood. But so your version of the movie Brats of the 70s.
Yeah.
And then obviously there's the Brat Pack of the 80s, which are more actors, obviously.
Yeah.
My version of that for you that inspired me were the film festival like geeks of the 90s. Kevin Smith, Soderbergh, Tarantino, those guys.
I read Robert Rodriguez, all the 1991.
I read his book, Rebel Without a Crew or whatever it was.
Right.
When I was literally like 10 years old.
Yeah. So Sundance, the first editions of Sundance were like was I guess the indie American filmmaking, exactly. Organized, you know, and it's like, I think it's the first edition or second edition. Robert Rodriguez meets Tarantino at Sundance, right? Like Kevin Smith is doing Clerks.
And then
Tom Kaelin, a lot of
Tarantino moves to Texas because he becomes such good friends with Robert Rodriguez. About 15 years before Texas becomes like a hot spot for tech. Yeah. He moves to Austin. And he ends up shooting the Grindhouse movies there with Robert Rodriguez.
Troublemaker Studios, which is the thing that Rodriguez started in Austin, and they did that one because. Yeah, Robert Rodriguez is the ultimate indie filmmaker, right? He lights, he shoots, he edits, he can do everything by himself.
Favreau as well. From the 90s. One of course. My hero. You know, I think I've told you this in personal life, but I'll say it on the show. When I moved here in 2007, I saw Jon Favreau speak at a double feature of Swingers and Made on Montana Street in Brentwood at the Aero Theater. And he was shooting Iron Man 1 at the time. And he said that he made those movies so that he could make an Iron Man. It changed my life because I was like, if Jon Favreau is telling me it's okay to like big Hollywood movies, I'm going to give it a chance, and Iron Man ends up changing Hollywood.
It's incredible, right? Like that is another movie that changes like the scope of movies. Everything. And for Jon Favreau also, like talented writer, talented actor, completely into that comedy world and then like jumping into making the biggest movie.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
I think
some people are just talented and...
Yes. You know what's funny is when I was a mailroom guy at a PR firm, I was like, I started at 19, but this around when I was 20, I have to go to, there's all these runs you have to make with, you have to go to the bank, pick up cash, take it to certain places. I go to HSBC in Beverly Hills at Chinese Bank, and I pick up like $50,000. They're like, you got to take it to Mar Vista. I take it down there. It's the fucking Iron Man set from but it's Iron Man when they're on the Air Force Base.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's just insane. I'm like, holy shit! I got to be at like the first Marvel movie that's like besides the Hulk with Edward Norton, but that's insane.
Insane. But I think like when you look at that Marvel movies, and I like them, I have nothing against them. Me too. But to me, they all are very, very similar. It's like it's not a artist-driven movie. It's like a studio-driven movie. They all have the same kind of look in terms of cinematography, the editing.
The scripts are good, I think, music.
The scripts are really, really good.
Which is rare for a big movie.
But they take really good care of that. But I feel like once I see a couple, I know exactly how it's going to feel, and that's what people want, and that's fine.
Yeah.
I think when I see in this movie, Jurassic Park, I feel like, look, obviously it's Schindler's List, and I'm comparing them just because he made them back to back.
Yeah.
It's a way more like serious subject matter. It's very difficult to compare like a popcorn, like kid movie with such a like big drama.
And no one should really like it's
Right, but in terms of like filmmaking, I think it's as good. It's just one of those things like blocking, which for people who don't know what blocking means is like just moving the actors in the frame to like stage a scene like it was theater. You know,
Can you explain? I know what blocking is, but can you explain what makes like a scene in Jurassic Park where that's really good? Because I don't understand blocking because I'm not a director.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's brilliant as like in I don't know how many people can block a scene like that.
Is it Spielberg telling the actors and making them mark or
Yes.
telling? Oh wow!
He's choreographing this whole thing. So, for example, one of my favorite scenes in the movie, besides the raptors in the kitchen, which I think is
I was
my
just
favorite,
thinking about that.
but
But it's
it's-
actually scary.
So I feel like, well, we'll go back to the themes of the movie in a second. But I think one of my favorite scenes is when they're about to go in the store, right? And then the protagonist, Dr. Grant, meets the grandkids of John Hamm.
When they should show up, yeah.
And they show up, and the kid starts talking to him about dinosaurs, right? And it's
Yeah.
and we're talking about a guy who doesn't like kids. So the way that they decide to block the scene is like, okay, this kid comes to him, starts talking. So they move around the car.
Exactly.
They get inside the car, and as you can see in his head, it's like he's realizing that this kid is following him.
So you go see the other car and the camera follows.
And
Yeah.
so they enter a car, they come out of the other door, and he asks him, hey, which car are you gonna go in? So like, oh, whatever you are. So he has an idea. So he walks towards the other car. He opens the door for the kid. He lets the kid go in. And all of this is just one shot, one big.
That's so beautiful.
And very well choreographed. And the kid starts talking. The camera gets closer to the kid. And then boom, he closes the door on the kid. And kind of like success, he trapped one.
Yeah.
And then he walks, and then the other kid is there.
Yeah.
Kind of like trapping him between the two and the girl. And it's like, she told me to ride with you because it's gonna be good for you.
And then they cut to her and she's smiling, right?
Right. Smiling, and then there's that pushing. Like, I mean, this movie has a lot of those Spielberg shots that is like all about wonder, you know. Where, like,
But I love that. What the hell is the point of movies if you don't do that? Even as someone who's like, oh, I watched Hedwig and the Angry Inch when I was like a kid and all this stuff, and I still fucking love those Spielberg movies.
Yeah.
But that optimism is why I think art exists in the first place.
Yeah, and movies like music, I feel, are the only art that is difficult to intellectualize as you watch it because it bypasses you. It's easy to get emotional, you know, to get into that ride, and like you just don't know what's happening, but you just know that you're feeling all of those emotions. When you're in a comedy, when it's like a horror movie, it's like thrill rides.
It's like a roller coaster. You don't know how they designed it, but you know you're having the best time ever.
Right, and I think that's why they have so much power.
So beautiful. I was just thinking how, well, Jurassic Park, when I saw it the first time.
Yeah.
So when the raptors attacked the T-Rex at the end.
Yes.
I begged my dad to leave. I was so afraid. And that's like a core memory I have at Sharpstown Mall in Houston. And I was like, and you know what's funny is that's where the premiere of that movie Sidekicks was with Jonathan Brandis. And Chuck Norris.
Yeah.
I saw them like walking there with my dad, but I remember I walked out of Jurassic. I begged my family to let me go.
Because of the Spielberg directing this movie, producing things like Gremlins, they came out with that rating, the PG-13, kind of like there was no such thing that's an in-between.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, because even when he made Jaws was a,
PG, right?
No, it was, what is just G, right? Like,
I didn't know that.
But Jaws was PG.
PG.
Oh, it was PG.
And they made a note. For the
It's
first
a
time
little
ever,
scary.
that said like, because it's there, but it is scary.
Yeah.
And so this rating is like, it is for kids, but it's for kids to also have fear, but it's not a horror movie.
That's fascinating because I guess the people going there, like the parents were born in the 40s and 30s.
Right. Yeah, but it is. I remember being scared, and you have a lot of those jump scares
in Jaws?
this movie. No, in Jurassic Park.
I was so scared because I was born in '87, so I would have been under 7 years old when I saw it. Well, kind of the perfect time for a kid buying like Burger King toys, whatever.
Totally.
But it was like incredibly scary to me.
When the what's called the Dilophosaurus, like the guy who like
Yeah, that is
scary.
well, you don't. But,
Newman. That was
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So as an American, we all knew that as Newman. I don't. So as a Spaniard, you didn't know who that was, huh?
This is the first time that I saw this guy.
It's how wild.
And
That's so interesting.
The two movies I relate him to is this and Basic Instinct.
That is so funny. We all see him as Kramer's neighbor.
And right. And it was only later that I saw him like, and of course he has some. You can see that he has the comedy timing in the movie.
So funny. Oh yeah, when
like-
he's a little, but he's mean to the.
He's very mean.
But even
Exactly.
even if the Dilophosaurus is a poisonous dinosaur, it's still mean to me that he's like, shut up or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm like, be
It's
nice to the animal, dude.
Yeah, he says something like, "Oh, of course you went stint," you know.
And I think that's obviously very purposeful that he would be mean to them, and then they show earlier in the movie they're like gently like rubbing them and stuff.
Yes,
Yeah, he's funny at work though. He's like
definitely. And like
lazy
also
at-
Sam Jackson. This is pre Pulp Fiction, which I think is the movie that to me
Of course.
makes him.
And he's smoking a cigarette, and there are no negative consequences to his character. So it's definitely before a time where the MPAA would enforce it.
But he dies.
Oh, but
He dies because like he go, you know, like what's
fucking
Laura
right.
Dern's character Ellie.
oh, that was
the
so
arm.
scary. The
Right.
arm freaked me out.
Yeah.
When she's like, oh, she feels comforted, and then
And then it's like
that was fucking scary.
He would have
Yeah.
died of cancer anyways.
Yeah, exactly. But it's definitely, he's
Because he
smoking.
seems like as like an empathetic character, like we like him because he's working hard, and
Yeah.
Newman is not. And so I always found it fascinating that he was also smoking a cigarette.
Yeah.
Because like when I was a kid in the 90s, I wanted to smoke cigarettes so badly because they look so cool
Yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
movies and TV.
No, but I feel like it's one of those tales that he's smoking, he's gonna die.
Of course. And now today, like,
Yeah.
yeah. I remember when there was first vaping in True Detective season 2. I
Yeah.
was like, oh my God, they're vaping. Like, and now people vape in every movie.
Right, and then it'll be in a couple of years, so it won't be cool anymore. And
Of course.
see all of that.
Oh my God, people make fun of me for this. They go,
Yeah.
that's the old one.
You're not keeping up with the trends.
No, I'm not. It's so funny. I'll go on dates and they're like, what is that? And
Yeah.
I'm like, just relax.
I also like the close up on Samuel Jackson's lips with the cigarette hanging
Yes,
out.
it has
Talking.
that.
For some reason, that image is just burned into my brain of him talking with a cigarette in his mouth.
It's so famous, that one scene. It
Yeah.
makes me want to smoke cigarettes. I even started taking a hit
Yeah.
from this because it feels so alluring. That's what's fascinating about it, because I would read those Tarantino books in the 90s, and they would say like, oh, the heroin scene with John Travolta where it's bubbling was like the MPAA hated that, and Tarantino had to beg to let them like keep some frames of it
Yeah.
in because they were saying it was so triggering to addicts. And this is in the 90s they were saying
Yeah.
that. And I completely understand. I'm
Yeah.
like, that stuff is very triggering.
I forgot to talk to Bobby about when we discussed Pulp Fiction about, because that super famous scene of Uma Thurman like being kind of resuscitated with the
That gets me in my heart.
injection. So this is based on a Scorsese story that was cut out of Taxi Driver.
In Pulp Fiction?
Yeah, where it was based on a real story that Scorsese told in the making of Taxi Driver.
Yeah.
It's not in the movie. Somehow one of the characters tells the story that was cut, or it was on another movie, something that Scorsese and that Tarantino picked up on and then recreated it as a
Holy shit.
funny. I mean, it is funny and it's like gruesome at the same
I
time.
didn't know.
It's pretty.
I love scenes like that. I like.
Yeah.
I even love in Jurassic Park. I love like going all the way. Like that's why I love like where we work at Bad Friends. Like I love going all the way. Like
Yeah.
I love when the lawyer just gets eaten. I'm
Yeah.
like, let's show it. Like, come on, man. Like
Yeah.
I
And
just think it's a beautiful thing in movies when people don't hold back. Like we're making art, and I want everyone to feel the feelings
Yeah.
that I want them to feel.
And you can see, like, you know, as gruesome as those scenes are, they're not, you know, you don't see
You don't
the
see
blood.
guts. Yeah.
So they keep that. That's what that rating comes from. Like, it's scary, but you don't see completely. You have to.
You don't
fill the
need
blanks.
to.
Yeah.
And also in dinosaur deaths, I feel like they would be whole chomps anyway.
Right. It'll be horrible, like a lion, you know,
Yeah.
throwing a person. But yeah,
You'd just be 2 bites and then you're in the stomach, and there would be no blood everywhere.
You know what? It's Spielberg building tension, right? With that water, with the
good.
fence, like the electrical fence is
Incredible.
going to turn on, so it makes it so much scarier.
You're so right, Skeleton, because the water running is such a tension builder. Like in Boogie Nights, when it's not like that scene in Boogie Nights where there's the firecrackers, but there is that.
Oh, that's tension building for sure.
But that is tension building. But I like that you said that, because I completely didn't even think of that. How the water running is such a scary tension building thing.
The thing with him is like you could see that he absorbed all the Hitchcock tricks, right? All the tension, the suspense, that the T-Rex appearing, right? And also the fact that he decided to do it at night, that it's raining.
I love that.
So that way also it's obscuring the frame, and therefore the dinosaurs are as real as possible, because
so
the
scary.
effects, like they are animatronics, or they are but they're hidden in all those layers of stuff. Like there's reflections, and I think it's brilliant. That shot, super famous shot of the water, right? The glasses of water, like and seeing the.
But I like the daytime after that, because they didn't go to sleep, so the daytime feels very like dreamy, like very like. It just feels demented in a way, like, oh, we're here the next day. The world kept moving. Yeah. And oh my God, I'm still on an island with dinosaurs in Costa Rica.
Yeah. What is your favorite shot? What it comes to mind? What do you remember that is something like an image that it has so many, I feel, this movie?
What's coming to mind, because there's so many, but what's coming to mind is honestly at the end when the raptors are chasing them in the kitchen, and I'm thinking of the two kids in the drawers, the metal drawers, and the raptors there like breathing. I remember because when I was a kid, we're like 6 minutes away from me wanting to leave.
Right.
So I'm like, this is so fucking scary. But those shots, like.
Yeah.
I like that in a Spielberg movie, in an optimistic movie where there's heartfelt scenes and all these things, it becomes a horror movie.
It is a horror movie.
And it's like, it's so, I mean, and the reason I keep bringing up that I left the fucking movie and begged my dad, and also asking my dad to leave a movie when I was a kid was a very big deal. He's bigger than me, scary, all these things. I'm very afraid of him. And I'm just like, Lord, please, we have to leave. Yeah. Please, we have to go to church now. Anything, please.
Right. Yeah.
It was magical when I saw it first time.
Yeah. I mean, I love so many moments and shots. I think like it's so well built, from the eye of at the beginning scene, just the eye of the velociraptor in that cage.
So cool. It opens like uncut gems.
Yeah.
When they're there.
Right. But like that, for example, I remember that gigantic paw of the T-Rex coming in and getting the mud out, with
scary.
The kids and
it comes out bubbling.
Right.
I like when the fucking T-Rex is roaring and the glass comes out.
The glass comes, and they are incredible moments.
I thought about that in my pool growing up. I would look up from underneath the water and I'd be like, oh, the T-Rex is coming.
Yeah. It has a lot of brilliant things like that. But so the movie is clearly that one of those like Promethean allegories of like, okay, don't fuck up with nature, right?
Yes.
Like they say in the movie, I guess the big phrase is life finds a way, right?
Yeah,
like,
just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yeah, and the idea of like that you think you can control this, you're playing God, but nature has its own plans,
Oh, yeah.
Technically, they are building on, or they're engineering only females dinosaurs, so they're not going to be inbreeding. Immediately after you see that there are eggs in
it's funny because like in the 90s, that's such like an insane thing to think about. But as the internet grew and stuff, I'm like, oh, there's animals all the time that like that can like become asexual and reproduce. And there's like there's a bird that just this week came back after like 15,000 years. Or crazy. Like,
but the movie hits that note a lot of the times, and I think a lot of the franchises like that. But I think what makes this movie special, and it's something that I've seen recreated in other movies too, but not to this degree, is the fact that yes, there's a movie about that and there's a movie about dinosaurs, but the reality of the movie, the thing that keeps you going is that these characters are so engaging, and is this guy who hates kids.
I love him in it.
Right, hates kids from the beginning. The first scene when he's talking about his theory about raptors, this kid says, "Oh, that doesn't look very scary. He's like
It's like a giant chicken.
6-foot turkey or something."
Yeah, that
right?
brat. He was a UCB actor. Like,
really funny kid, and then he goes on and on and on, and
I hated that kid in the movie. I wanted to.
right.
I was like, I hope he gets killed.
And he, why is there a kid in that excavation? Like only that.
I didn't even think of that.
Showing that he hates kids.
Yeah.
The next time, right, that John Hamm comes into their lives and say, "Hey, I can found your expedition for the next 3
In
years.
the
If you guys
trailer.
come here," and basically like he says something like, our attractions are gonna drive kids crazy,
Mm-hmm.
and he says, what are those? And then Ellie says, they're small versions of adults.
Oh, I love that.
He's asking about the attractions, but she knows that he hates kids.
That is such fucking good writing.
Oh,
That is like,
it's a brilliant script. And then they go into this island. He doesn't want to sit with the kids.
Mm-hmm.
What is he gonna do for the rest of the movie? Just taking care of these two kids.
so funny.
And the last shot of the movie, or one of the last shots of the movie, when they're in the helicopters, he has the kid, he's embracing these kids, he's comfortable with
Yeah.
kids, he kind of like became a dad.
And that's USC Screenwriting 101. Full circle.
Yeah.
Like, they definitely teach this in school. It's
Yeah.
so good.
But also I think like his own upbringing, his own deals with his dad, his
Yeah.
own like, dad and like E.T. is famously, like...
Did you read the book, by the way?
Which book?
Jurassic Park.
Oh, yeah.
I loved it.
I read the book. I like the movie better, but I
like the book better.
love the book.
Yeah.
It kept me going, but I think the changes that the movie made, the movie was more emotional to me. The book was more like
Scientific, yeah.
and it had that more of the horror thing and the bad guy jump. Everybody
Yeah.
was more like,
Can I tell you that?
yeah,
Oh my gosh, I was on vacation with my ex-wife, and we get in a big argument. I leave. I take the rent. It's storming in Wisconsin. All right, like I've been there once in my life. It's a place I shouldn't be, and I go park the car like a mile away. I just need to get away.
yeah,
And it's storming middle of the summer. I pull out Jurassic Park. I read like 150 pages because I'm so mad. And it's funny because I'm reading it and I'm thinking of the movie, and it's a stormy night, like in the woods.
and you started looking around.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I have like a fondness for that book because it saved me during a really hard time.
Yeah,
And I bought The Lost World after I got divorced. And I just kind of continued. I loved it.
read most of his books.
They're great.
and I think, and also he's a writer in the movie. He's one of the
Mm-hmm.
co-writers. David Koepp is the other one, and who was like also a kid.
Yeah.
His first
insane.
screenplay,
It's the old days.
and but I think like they brought all that heart to the movie.
Yeah.
That I think it makes the ride so enjoyable, because for a dinosaur movie, once you think about it, you see a lot of dinosaurs in your head, but watching the movie, there's not that much dinosaur
Yeah.
in a dinosaur movie.
That's
It's
the
very
beauty
much
of
the
it.
Jaws approach of like, he knows film so well
Mm-hmm.
that's the other thing that the other movies cannot do. You have to have the dinosaurs all the time.
I love heart. Like,
Yeah.
I'll tell you that was when I worked for Apatow on
Yeah.
Love on Netflix. This is for the audience. You damn know that. But that was such a mantra of Judd Apatow, was love
Yeah.
and heart. Has to be in the script. Where's the heart? More heart. And I've thought about that basically every other day since.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not a huge Apatow fan. I mean, we should bring Trisha back
I know.
to talk about him. But
the heart of it all.
when he did to me like 40-Year-Old Virgin, and then his year of like doing like Knocked Up and
Yeah.
and
There's heart in those
and
scripts though, where they
Superbad.
could have been shitty.
it's
you know?
like, no, he changed a little bit what comedy was to make it like this dramedy, right? Like this
Yeah.
real things are happening to real characters, all of that.
That's what life is like. Yeah.
And I think they did a great job, like in the in terms of bringing that. Then eventually the movies, I wasn't into them as much as.
Well, eventually you make money, you can write the scripts in a day.
Right. But I thought, I definitely saw that moment in time where they were doing that, and then Alexander Payne was doing something like Sideways.
Oh yeah,
like those movies that they're very funny, but they're also they're not silly funny. They're
obsessed with those movies, like Election and Sideways. Sideways, one of the best movies I've ever seen. Like the idea of like just following a character through anything, even if it's I'm 15 or 16, I'm watching a movie about a middle-aged guy, divorced guy going through like wineries. Like I don't like.
But those movies, in terms of the Hollywood spectrum, right? Those are a little more raw.
Yes.
They're a little more realistic, a little more independent, right?
But without Spielberg, I feel like
Spielberg is the Hollywood version of all of this, right? Like the camera is on a crane. The lighting is. There's so much
expensive
construction, that's what I'm saying. The blocking is brilliant, but it is fake. People don't move like that so you can get the perfect shot. It's just he does it in a way that is
like that
seamless. Though. But it is a mechanism, right? A puzzle that he puts together.
It's like a play.
Movies in the indie world usually is like, okay, it's more like a handheld camera or some sort of device that keeps the camera stable so it's not annoying for
the stabilizer on they're wearing it, right,
a steady cam, but it's something like, okay, if it has to feel more real, we don't build sets, we use actors in a way, you know. I like both. I mean, a good movie is a good movie no matter what the approach is.
I agree.
I just feel in the spectacle world, in the wonderland, that's why I love this movie. I think Jurassic Park made me dream of making movies, and this is possible to have. I mean, and you can see it's like he's a 40-year-old, 43, 44 when he makes these movies.
Insane. That's so young to us.
But he's a 20-year-old spirit, right? He's making a movie for kids. He knows,
which is awesome.
You have that
I love that
Triceratops moment, right? Like, which is, I think, every kid favorite dinosaur because it looks like cute and harmless. Yeah. And everybody's like, he puts himself there as he breathes, and like,
I love that part.
It's that moment of like, wow, this is like this is real.
Yeah, it's insane. That part, like, that's when everyone's like shocked when they see the Triceratops breathing with what's his name, Sam Neill.
Sam Neill.
Yeah.
Incredible moment, and I feel like it's also the other thing that makes this movie is the music.
Of course,
I think is one of my favorite soundtracks. But it is so because it keeps the theme. The first 15 minutes you don't hear it completely, but when that helicopter gets to the island,
the
famous music starts with the da-da-da, I
skeleton.
I think it's
you'll get back to land one day.
Yeah.
To the mainland.
It's and it has the wonder, it has the horror, but the music makes it very much like this. Yeah, the awe.
Yeah.
I think I remember
Hollywood movie kind of thing. Like
very
Hollywood movie.
So if Steven Spielberg is Jordan, then John Williams is Pippin.
Oh, I like that. Did you see Skeleton, do you see Michael Jordan's son is gonna marry Scottie Pippen's ex-wife?
Oh, I did see that.
Insane.
That's a little crazy.
It's so weird.
That's a little crazy, the world of that.
Yeah, Skeleton, I'm glad you're not back in America.
Yeah.
You don't need to be there. I'll tell you the news.
I'm glad I died.
Yeah, exactly. It's complicated.
I mean, I was lucky enough to be invited to when John Williams got the AFI award. I was there in the theater.
Wow.
And it was one of those moments where, like, obviously his stable is George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, and anyway, but Spielberg came out and said something like, okay, we worked for 40 years together, we made 23 movies, and without John, he says, the bicycles don't fly, nor do like brooms in a Quidditch match, the dinosaurs don't walk the earth, there's no force.
It's insane.
And you start thinking about it, and it's like, holy moly, like all this staple.
I love John Williams. He always does a concert at the Hollywood Bowl every year.
Yeah.
I've never been, but I
go every year.
I've only been to the Bowl once. I went to Lana Del Rey with a date.
I mean, I think it's incredible for any sort of spectacle, but every year they choose 2 or 3 movies.
Yeah.
And they play them without the score, and the score gets played live.
I've always wanted to see
I
that.
can tell you, it's like, and it sounds so well. It's a different experience. It's a
Fuck.
concert and a movie, and it's every year.
And you
It's
like it?
I love them. So
Okay, I
thought
have to do this.
Yeah, and it's like they usually choose like, you know, famous movies that have big scores. And I saw Back to the Future, like Psycho, or, you know,
I would
Harry
love
Potter.
to do that. The first time I heard of that was the Dark Knight premiere in New York City had
Yeah.
that. And I was working in the mailroom at the time. And so I saw the invitations to the premiere. And at the bottom, it said like, no, like something about like no
Live
audio,
music.
like score done in like IRL, basically. And I was like, I was like, what? That sounds weird. And I was like, it's not gonna work. Like I was like
but,
20.
But it's incredible how it sounds. It's like feels because music feels so incredible
Imagine.
live.
I mean, you
That's
can
Hans
imagine.
Zimmer too, and Hans Zimmer, another huge composer.
Exactly, yeah. The Christopher who does Nolan's a lot.
He does Nolan,
Everyone.
Scott,
Yeah.
and Pirates of the Caribbean.
Where
Yeah.
does
Lion
this
King.
Jurassic theme music compare to John Williams' other work? Is it top 3, you think, Andres, Carlos?
Top 3, yeah, hell yeah.
Look, I think is this you hear 5 or 6 notes of his, and you know the movie. To me, that's incredible. You know, I think
I like A New Hope though. The music from A New Hope
I
so
think
much.
that's his. If you have to choose just one, it'll have to be
That's what-
Star Wars.
That's what it is for me.
I think
yeah.
it's the biggest canvas he ever will have to write music. Also, he wrote the nine movies.
And the Double Moon song. That's I always forget the name of that song, but
Yeah.
it is the double Tatooine moon.
Yeah.
That's- Yeah,
I think
in
that
Family Guy they do it. It's like the most beautiful thing in the world.
it's an incredible shot, an incredible movie, an incredible soundtrack,
Insane.
and I think for him, but I think because like Indiana Jones is incredible. I think E.T. is incredible. Jurassic Park.
I don't
And
remember the music in Indiana Jones as much though, to be
The
honest with you.
da-da-da-da,
Well, I do, but not like those emotional moments
Oh.
that Jurassic Park provides or Star Wars
see.
provides.
Or when the bicycles fly on E.T.
Well, but Indiana Jones doesn't feel as emotional to me.
No,
like
of course,
those
no,
ways.
and it's not because he's more cynical, right? He's a James Bond character. It's
Yeah.
not about
But I loved his
Yeah.
relationship with Sean Connery. That is so inspirational to me with
Yeah.
my own writing and stuff. Like
and those are very also. I mean, so iconic, and everything he does.
the
is,
dad mad at the son. Like that's like the funniest thing in the world to
Yeah.
me. Like Sean Connery and him. Like he's like this amazing like James Bond like character, and his dad is just annoyed of him. Like,
Yeah.
that's hilarious to me.
incredible. But yeah, I don't know where Jurassic. I think Jurassic is one of my favorites for sure. Music.
Top 3.
I don't think people will put it up there. You know, probably they choose something like Schindler's List.
I feel like it suffers from being so good that it gets almost like looked over. That
Yeah.
happens all the time. It's
Yeah.
like Spielberg is probably won't even be appreciated as much because he's so the foundation for everything.
Yeah, I feel like he won an Oscar. That was his first Oscar, Schindler's List, after a
That's
career.
insane, actually.
But at the same, I mean, not that I feel sorry for him. I think who hasn't seen in the whole world, right? Who hasn't seen a Spielberg movie? You know, it's
Some kids in
Imagine
Africa.
for an
You know
artist.
what I mean?
But if they had seen one, they'd probably be one of
Yeah.
his. You know, it's like
Exactly. That's
Some-
the case. Yeah.
some of those things that are like so powerful. I feel on one hand, right, those filmmakers of the 70s, 80s, who, and especially George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, so original, so unique, so good. They also changed the industry for everybody to make movies like them, and it kind of closed the door of the 70s. Because the 70s are right, so the studio system collapses. Nobody knows how to make movies. They put in charge people who don't know how to make movies, but they love movies. So they give the artists all the money.
So awesome.
Incredible movies, and everybody's doing this as the first movie. $20 million, $10 million, right? All of that stuff. Movie, hit. I think there's a famous quote of Coppola saying, "Wow, the movies of the '80s are gonna be amazing," and then all of them, including Spielberg, his first flop happens in the beginning of the '80s. You know,
Even like De Palma with the
so it's the
Untouchables is not.
right. I know. I think Untouchables is a success, but when they did, Spielberg does a movie called 1941.
Oh, yeah,
gigantic movie that flops. Scorsese does. I don't remember if it's King of New York. It's one of those movies that also flops. The Palm Coppola goes bankrupt with a movie called One from the Heart, and then of all people, Michael Cimino, who had been an Oscar winner with The Deer Hunter, makes a movie called Heaven's Gate. Collapses 2 studios. It's such an expensive movie.
There's like books about it. Yeah.
There's books about it and all that. And then the studio said, no more. No more.
We're not giving these kids.
This era is over.
Yeah.
And then the 80s becomes a completely different filmmaking.
Yeah. I feel like in the 80s, there's like 10 good movies. Like, I really do think that.
Yeah.
I don't love them.
There is something naive about the 80s that I love. I love the Back to the Futures.
That's what I'm saying. Those are the good movies.
Joneses and all of that. But, or Star Wars is the 80s, like the second and the third one. But it kind of like, it's not. If you go back in the 70s, it's like year after year. It's art. After a hit. It's a art and commercial.
Andres, do you think that has something to do with the 80s and the time of, wealth, cocaine?
Wall Street excess?
Yeah, there's a lot going on in the 80s that was different than the 70s. And, movies are always a reflection of your environment.
Oh, yeah. I actually do believe that. I think that the 80s were a time of like, we're only going to greenlight sure hits kind of thing. And I think the 90s, like indie filmmakers going to Sundance are a response to the 80s excess.
Definitely. But I think I'm not sure if it's the Reagan era and all of that stuff, a reflection in the movies. I feel like definitely there is a positivity in the US that brings that naive type of movie that then is gone in the 90s, right? That I think in terms of like, Goonies and Back to the Future and all that, they're very positive, lighthearted movies. But in terms of the studio saying no more, I think it's just the financial ruin that this artist brings to the system, that the studio says no more. We're gonna just greenlight things that are properties, franchises, that the beginning of the sequels and prequels and franchising, the idea that when Arnold Schwarzenegger makes that movie,
Total Recall?
No. He's a superhero in the last section here or something.
Oh, I love that movie. Yeah.
So it's a huge flop.
I know, I loved it.
The beginning of kind of like the studio system cannot rely only on an actor. An actor is not, I think at that time, maybe a Tom Cruise. It's one or two that any movie they do. And instead it's like, let's do franchises.
Yeah.
So Jurassic Park was a success. Let's do Jurassic Park 2 and 3. Or Back to the Future was successful. Let's do 2 and 3.
And Vince Vaughn goes in too. Yeah. Because he's in Swingers.
Yes. And everything is like that.
It's a party with Vanessa, his like stepdaughter.
Yes.
Yeah, she's cool. Yeah, it started a lot of parties in the 2010s.
But anyway, it's this idea of the franchising and having properties, comic books, and now superheroes, whatever it is, something that is a little more like safe.
Now it's like video games, like
like
the Halo show on Paramount Plus.
Yeah. So I feel like that changed a little bit, and then then on the other hand, you have the artists, and it's like, okay, we can make movies with nothing. Let's do it ourselves, the world that we are in. Yeah. And sometimes use success.
It goes to mumblecore. Like we can like take all the movie. We can like go through all of them, of course. But yeah.
Yeah, and there was a moment that Scorsese said, I am successful. I've been lucky enough that I can make movies, and the movies that I want. But the only person who can do whatever he wants in this business is Spielberg.
Which is, it's the wild. Scorsese can't even do that.
No.
It's interesting because you can even see it to this day. It's like, Scorsese like releases his stuff on Netflix. He goes to Apple TV, and it's like, well, why do you think he's doing that? Because the studios aren't telling him that he can like release it on big screens, all that stuff. It's like he's being told no somewhere.
Yeah.
Whereas Spielberg is likely never told no.
He became a producer, and he's actually the
Spielberg.
Most prolific producer in history. Is the producer with most movies that he has produced. Not only produces his movies, but he has produced for so many people.
For J.J. Abrams too.
Oh yeah, for Michael Bay, and he produces at different levels, right? He's executive producer and chose certain directors like Robert Zemeckis wouldn't be Robert Zemeckis without Spielberg, right?
Of course.
Like the Amblin touch or the executive producer thing where like he did Goonies and I don't
Back
know
to
all
the Future, all those.
Right. And
such a big deal when you see his name at the top of the credits.
Exactly.
Really legitimizes the movie, makes Robert Zemeckis' name look like gold or silver after the gold of Spielberg.
It's an incredible endorsement, in the same way that Coppola did, with George
We
Lucas,
all need that in Hollywood.
George Lucas with Ron Howard, and that kind of like the mentorship.
But that's how Hollywood is, or life is. I don't know.
It used to be more... Well, I wish I had a person like that, right? Like that it was.
But don't you like? So I feel like I do. Like because I talk about comedy.
Yeah.
And I feel like, and even Andrew had mentioned this on the Dumb and Dumber episode. Like, Bobby didn't talk to him until Andrew was on Punk'd.
Yes.
And I feel like you do need those blessings from Hollywood to move up. And you could call Punk'd the Steven Spielberg for Santino to move him up, whatever. But like, I feel like that's still very true in showbiz.
You need to, but for example, like so Zemeckis and Bob Gale have written scripts and make a cute thing in film school, and then Spielberg goes and said, "Okay, I'll buy your movie, I'll produce your movie," and the movie fails, and then said, "Okay, I'll produce the next one too." And then the next one's a hit, That, I don't think that happens that often.
No.
But...
Because that costs Spielberg a lot of money.
Right. And but his name has that relevance. I feel these days, I have a feeling that the Marvel world, which I don't know if it's coming to... an end is not impossible, but a different phase, because I think movies, there's a certain fatigue. I don't think the movies are as good anymore.
Oh yeah,
people are tired. But definitely something like, so the latest Spielberg movie didn't make the money back, in theaters.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that being like a good movie or like being like an Oscar nominated movie.
Yeah.
So it's his touch, in terms of like making those movies away from an audience that he understands really well. So we'll have to see what his next project is. But his last couple movies, he did West Side Story, he did The Fabelmans.
I like them all.
I mean, in terms of filmmaking, again, I think.
But we're over 30.
70.
Yeah.
But I'm in terms of skill, I don't think there's anyone like him. I think in terms of taste, I don't know if that's what younger people want to see.
I feel like, but in terms of taste, it's like, can't a great filmmaker make a movie about anything and you'd love it? I personally believe that. I will watch Steven Spielberg make a movie about ice skating.
Right.
I mean, like in the way Steven Soderbergh made a movie about male strippers.
Yeah.
And it's Magic Mike is not supposed to be good. And it's amazing.
But I feel like, for example, like the younger generation will connect in terms of big Hollywood, right? Connect with Christopher Nolan, for example.
Yeah. And
it's not that he's making this... I mean, he's making a movie about Oppenheimer. Apparently, it shouldn't be, this is for sure a popcorn movie, It's a subject matter that is dark, but there's something a little maybe more modern about how he makes movies.
Yeah.
A little less, I mean, I feel like Spielberg, like Scorsese, all of those guys are like the end of an era. I mean, Woody Allen still makes movies, and Roman Polanski, although they're not being released in the US, but they are the kind of like the end of that.
It makes me bummed out because I watch Christopher Nolan movies and I'm always like, only one character matters to the writer. Like in Interstellar, only Matthew McConaughey's character feels like drawn out to me. Like the others feel like very half-assed. And I feel like Spielberg never did that. Like, so like everyone loves Christopher Nolan. I think his movies are great, but I do think they're hugely flawed, which is not a hot take. A lot of people think this, like that his brother is not a great writer. Jonathan.
I mean, I think he's a great filmmaker too. I think he's a little cold.
Yes.
To my taste. But because I grew up with this 80s thing that is a little more like heartfelt and a little...
But so did he, which is interesting. Even like Memento, when he made it, it's like, it's still a cold movie. Although I would say it's his best written movie. Like the characters just... Well, I don't know. The Prestige is pretty damn good, but it's still cold.
Look, I like the movies. But for example, something that stood out when I saw Dunkirk, which I think is a fantastic movie. But
I hated it. I'll die on that hill.
Yeah,
I already died, but I'll die on that hill again. I hated it.
I love Harry Styles in it, though. He's so good.
The idea of like, there's this huge moment with the character that Mark Rylance played, where a kid dies in his boat.
Insane.
and he looks back and looks forward, and they cover the kid and keep going.
Yeah.
Right? That wouldn't happen on a Spielberg movie. There's no emotion. So to me,
Which I think is not okay.
but
I don't love
it's
that.
maybe that British approach. I don't know. I think it's also real. Probably in a world like that, you don't have time to be sentimental about it.
To me, so that's definitely like a take. The way I inhale it is like fucking Christopher Nolan not like giving the kid time of day. Like they're just trying to rush.
Yeah,
this.
but if you think of a movie like Saving Private Ryan, the concept of it is so sentimental and so
getting a guy out of war for his family.
Yeah, like all his brothers died, his other 4 brothers died, and now they're gonna send this team to rescue the brother because in terms of like how bad that will look for the country and for this family. I mean, you don't need that story to take to have a take on World War II, but it's just like that emotion thing that it's gonna carry you through the movie.
And I talk about a scene in Saving Private Ryan that's my favorite, and why it's so good, and why Steven Spielberg's a master.
What is it?
Which one?
It's the scene where Wade dies, right? And the troop there is they're fighting with each other. Previously, they had a bet on what the captain does for a living back home.
Yeah. They're in the
they're
field.
fighting. Tom Sizemore has a gun pointed at somebody, and they're fighting. You know, Tom Hanks had just cried over Wade privately, away from everyone, so no one sees him crying. And then he comes back out and he goes, "I'm a school teacher. I teach baseball." He brings it back to a time where they're not fighting a war, they're back home.
Oh, I love that.
And everybody calms down. They go, "Wow, I'll be damned."
I love that.
It's a scene where their friend just died, and he's talking about being a school teacher and bringing the troops back. So emotional, so beautiful. Don't get that in Dunkirk. Go to hell, Dunkirk.
Yeah,
I'll tell you this,
it's a
my
different
dad.
take on life.
This is so silly. Like I had to prove that I could watch Saving Private Ryan because I was so young. I was like, I had to prove that I could watch Small Soldiers with Jay Moore, that movie. My dad was like, I don't know.
What is the test?
By taking me to see Saving Private Ryan. And so I sat in front of my dad because it was a packed theater.
Yeah.
And I pretended to be emotionally affected by D-Day. And I was like shaking my head like, this is horrible. and like the whole time I'm like, oh, this is awesome. Bullets everywhere. This is so cool. And I got to see Small Soldiers after that. And then we had to redo the whole test when Traffic came out in 99. And like,
yeah, there's like movies. I feel like he's such
I told Brody
versatility.
Stevens that story.
Yeah,
I always laugh.
it's a fun story.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely. I mean, he can do anything, and big and small, and with this style and this other style, right? Like he comes. Yeah,
He also does the same in Jurassic Park. So that scene in Saving Private Ryan, they plant that kind of seed of like, what does the captain do? And then it's revealed, right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing in Jurassic Park where, Sam Neill, he's talking about the raptor, and then, with the claw with the kid, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you breed a raptor. So there's all this building up of anticipation about raptors, then boom, he hits you with that final scene of the raptors.
Yeah.
And unleashes the raptors on the audience. It's like, that's building it up, and then here you go. And it's
so
like, whoa.
One of the things that is the most, I think, boring and difficult thing to do in a movie is give information, right? What we call in a script exposition.
Necessary, yeah.
And it's like, okay, we have to tell the audience something. So Star Wars needs that crawl at the beginning.
Yeah.
Because if not, you're not going to understand anything, right? And they actually wrote that title thing after him and his friends watching the movie, not understanding anything. Brian De Palma was the one saying, look, we need context, right?
Yeah.
So in a movie like Jurassic Park, he tons of exposition. How they make the dinosaur.
Literally how they make it, yeah.
Right. How is that possible? But one of the big, and all of them, if you look for how he gives information, you can see the amount of thought. So the exposition, the information is given in a fun way. So
something Jonathan Nolan won't do.
Right. So, for example, David Fincher loves information, loves those dialogue scenes, and he makes them rapid fire and it's fun. But Spielberg does this, like, so the setting up his bird theory that actually velociraptors would have to be birds.
Yeah.
That the way that they attack, the coordinated attack, that they don't do, they're not like the T-Rex who cannot see you.
They like hunting from,
All of that he does while threatening this kid. So you are watching an adult disliking a kid and making a point.
Yeah.
But you're receiving all this information that you don't know that you're gonna need. The moment that scene happens at the end, when like the hunter is about to kill and it appears, it's like, yes, we have the context to understand this. That's
called perfect writing.
Yes,
that is
and
perfect writing.
But it's the visualizing of that's not in the book. That's what I'm saying. That's how you bring the. Because in the book, you can stop and explain at any point, right? In the movie,
which they do a lot.
It's a train that cannot be stopped.
I love that, though. But I love in the book how the old man dies.
Right, and
with all the small dinosaurs that are like in the second one.
Yeah.
He gets like eaten by like 20 of them or something.
Yeah, there's a lot of like changes in that way with the book. But
he's running from the complex or something, and he gets eaten.
And he's more of a villain than in the movie. He's more like a tragic.
A nice grandpa who's rich and in his own way.
And he has this, it is a tragedy for him. Like he believed in doing this thing for himself or, living his legacy.
God, the book's so fucking
But the exposition also, the other great example of exposition is when he explains how the DNA thing works. It couldn't be a most boring thing for someone to say, hey, we're going to have to explain the DNA, that we found the DNA in the mosquitoes. But the way that they do with that animation and setting up, the movie has 3 introductions. The first scene introduces the world of danger. There is the dinosaur and there's danger. The second one introduces the idea of the amber and the mosquitoes and the fact that there is a problem. The third scene introduces the main character, right? And you know that is the main character. That's also another thing to watch for him, is like the same way that he will introduce Indiana Jones. When he introduces the hero, you know that he's gonna have a hero shot and it's gonna come into the frame.
Very Spielberg.
And all of that I think is awesome,
So funny. I with the amber and the mosquito. All summer, all year, I'm looking for amber and mosquitoes on trees. And I'm like, where the hell is it?
I think it activates your imagination in a way that is like, and that is obviously
sign of a good movie.
Michael Crichton's writing, and like the fact that is, but that movie, for example, like, so the guy is holding this amber thing. Everybody who is a miner has a light in his helmet.
Mexican dude,
and they're pointing out like to create this beautiful tableau. Right, every lighting is hitting something. And then the camera goes and approaches and goes into the mosquito, right? Like I think it's very Hollywood in a good way.
Yes.
Everything is like, you know that you're in good hands, that it's going to be a thrill ride.
Just like, the beginning of Uncut Gems.
I
always think of that. I think they were inspired too. I'm like, that's cool.
I feel like when you see a movie that is easily influenced by his world, like
anyone making movies today, I think, is probably influenced by Spielberg.
Some people think it's a bad thing that he had such a hold on everybody's imagination that it's difficult to break from that. You have to have, Tarantino is someone who's very original and is not following that tradition.
It takes incredible talent to break it. It's like, if you're mad about it, it's like, well, go find the next great
it's just
mind.
very difficult to do it well. The same way that Tarantino, when people try to copy Tarantino, it's very difficult to do that well because it's so unique.
Remember that movie Go?
Yeah.
I rewatched it, remembering how it's 99% Tarantino influence.
And
I'm like, this is the only movie I think that does it well, and it's not even close to Tarantino.
But there is a lot of like the dialogue, the crazy kind of like dialogue thing.
Any movie in the 90s.
About movies, like this irony.
So annoying in the 90s when they would talk about like a 60s or 70s show, and like, dude, you're just doing
or like
Tarantino.
the hamburger talks, that sort of thing. It's like, he's very unique.
So funny.
But that generation of the film, the
Way of the
film
Gun
brats were less ironic, and they were all very real and like. But they all knew how to move the camera.
Like in Jurassic Park, they're not talking about like a movie that day.
No. It's so like they're grounded. Doesn't matter how fantastic the situation is. It feels like this is real and it's happening. And
which makes me feel like Jurassic Park doesn't take place on our Earth. Like Pulp Fiction doesn't. Well, Pulp Fiction I feel like does take place in our world because they reference like movies in our world.
But it's a movie world,
which I like so much. I love movies that take place in movie world.
Absolutely. I think,
Yeah.
I mean, he's brilliant. He's fun. I will watch him and he's very talented, but it's just different. That LA doesn't exist.
I like that.
Yeah,
Like you talked about Last Action Hero. I fucking love that movie. It is so good. People hated it. I'm like, this movie's amazing. Are you kidding me? They show Sylvester Stallone as the Terminator in an alternate universe. I'm like, 25 years before Spider-Man or Spider-Verse or whatever. I'm like, that's amazing.
But it's cool, like, for people who really love movies, you know, you go to the movie theater, you go to the, back then, the video store. Now, I guess you go to Netflix. But the idea is, like, that you love everything, you know? Like, you're not a critic. You don't go to hate a movie.
No.
It's just very disappointing when something doesn't work for you. But when you see something special, I feel also there's an age, you know? Like, I don't think...
Yeah.
I think for me, seeing dinosaurs when I was 10... was very impactful. I remember that wonder thing, that magic.
Yeah.
If I have, you know, when I saw Iron Man, I liked the movie, but I wasn't like, oh my God, you know,
of course.
Someone can fly and do this and do that. There was no that moment. I feel like if I was 10 when I saw Iron Man, I would have the same, So to me, those movies that I saw between maybe 10 and 18 are the movies that stayed with me forever, you know, like
Same here. Tarantino, Spielberg, all those Usual Suspects, movies like that stuck with me, influenced me throughout my whole life.
Totally. And then today I still see a lot of movies that I like, but there's nothing that is like, oh my God, you know, this has changed my life.
I know. It's so interesting. Yeah. When you watch stuff today, it doesn't change your life. It doesn't inspire you as much. So I'm like you, I'm someone who goes back because I've craved that inspiration.
Yes.
So I don't become cynical. And
my goal has always been, you know, if I can make a movie that kind of like had on someone that kind of sense of wonder or happiness or whatever that I felt when I was at that age. You know?
But you know, Bad Friends is doing that. Bad Friends inspires people and it makes them feel so happy.
Oh, definitely.
To me, that's so important.
Comedy is such a... The thing with comedy... Someone call it the orgasm of the mind, right? Like, and it's like that sense of like, okay, it takes you out of whatever issues you have right now.
Yeah.
So people, I understand, and also when people are very funny, it's a gift. It's a gift.
Yeah,
so difficult to do, but
I think it's inspiring though. Bad Friends inspires me, and I'm working on it. So I can only imagine if you're 1,000 miles away and watching on your iPad, like, oh my gosh, like it must make you think there must be good in the world if like these like two like comedians are making me laugh and they're making fun.
Two idiots.
Yeah, making fun of everything. You know what I mean? I love that.
Yeah, I definitely. Yeah, I feel like we were lucky to be able to help create something as fun as that.
Just insane to be working on Bad Friends.
Yeah,
like, so fun and it's just chaos. Yeah. The things we deal with are chaos. So funny.
Definitely. Actually, one thing about the movie that we haven't talked about, and when I was at the movie theater with like my notebook.
You brought that in the theater?
I brought it in the theater just to see.
Was it in Burbank?
Yeah, it was just here.
So funny.
Yes, just in Burbank, and
you get recognized?
No.
Good.
I to be honest, I skipped the ads and all that, so I came in as the lights were dimmed and left when the directed by credit in the helicopter.
So you're like my dad between surgeries, going in real fast to see any movie. You know, it's so crazy. He goes to the movies so much, and he lives in 2 cities.
Yeah.
And in each city, they know him so well that he walks into the theater for free now.
That's so fun.
Goes and watches 20 minutes of a movie because he's like you.
Yeah.
Where it's like his complete escape. Like, he's not like with me, like I go on my phone, I can vape or smoke a joint.
Right.
He doesn't do anything. So movies are his only thing.
It's
hilarious.
Remember, I have always escaped whatever situation, work, school. If I could look with the movie, you know, and I could watch anything, you know, if the time would allow me to, like I would go and
that was how I used to. I've told you this. I used to be like that.
Yeah.
I actually think it's kind of sad, and you never lost this, but I lost it for some reason. But before COVID, around, you know, like I would go to the movies to see everything at the ArcLight, at the Grove.
And when I was very, very poor in New York, I was in school, I would go to an early movie and stay all day in the theater.
Oh, that's how I grew up.
And I would like skip from one to another screening room and watch them all. Today, I'm so glad that AMC came out with that movie pass.
Yeah. I did that too when I was my dad, me and my sister Candace, we would do the same thing. We would watch movies all day. Yeah. And every parent would be like, "Oh, so you're a thief." And I'd be like, "No, we've been doing that every day for 20 years. It's fine."
Exactly.
I'm seeing ladybugs with the Rodney Dangerfield.
the same thing. Also, movies in the U.S. were so expensive when I came here. I mean, even today, but
I remember when they hit $10. I was like, "What is this, New York City?"
Right. Yeah. But anyway, like one thing that I wrote was towards the end of the movie. Mm-hmm. Towards the middle of the movie, John Hamm says something to Newman.
Yeah.
That then later on in the movie, I feel like, oh, this is all about him because he's having financial issues or whatever. Yeah. And he's like, that's your problem. Whatever.
Yeah, I think that's funny. That's your issue.
And then he says,
hit me hard.
I don't blame people for their mistakes. I'll just ask that they pay for them.
So I'm like, by the way, when I see that, I'm like, is my dad around looking at me? Right. Like, I'm a little nervous. Like, whenever there's a moment like that in a movie, I'm like, oh, God, the important moment.
Someone is judging me, Yeah.
Like, oh, I hate seeing movies with my parents.
But I feel at the end of the movie, when he's contemplating what he has done, like one of the last lines of Alan, Dr. Grant, is like he's running. It's kind of like a funny moment. He's running out of the complex or the visitor center. Said like, "Hey, after careful consideration, I decided not to endorse your park." And then John goes like, "Yeah, me neither, right?" And then they go to the helicopter and he's looking around and is like, "Holy shit, what I did, And now I'm gonna have to pay for what I've done."
Yeah, I even got the lawyer murdered. Right. I brought here.
Exactly. So I feel like the playing with God thing, playing to be God and playing with nature is it's done so well that you feel okay, yeah, I shouldn't be doing this. I think today you can see it with eyes of climate change and other things. There's still like those
great
things are relevant.
Yeah. A great human lesson too in art, just to have in general, like there as a marker for humans to watch Jurassic Park 50 years from now and go like, it still has like a good message, which is just do your thing. Don't try and play God. Yeah. Calm down, which is what it is. Like, don't think you can just do anything.
Yeah. And I think for those who haven't seen Jurassic Park, I would say, look, it's really entertaining. Yeah. It is groundbreaking for special effects, CGI, all of that. Like, movies never been the same after that. Yeah. It's so, relevant in terms of message and all of that. And it's such a filmmaking, masterpiece that...
Laura Dern's so hot in it.
Oh, all the actors are amazing.
My ex-wife was like, she's like a fashion icon. And then I was like, oh, like... my ex, she dresses like Laura Dern. Yeah. So now I'm like always attracted. I'm like, oh, that's such like an LA summer outfit. I'm like the jean shorts.
Laura Dern is amazing in it. Like I've seen Sam Neill. It was the first time I have seen Sam Neill in the movie, and I was like, wow, what a cool hero.
Then he did that other movie with the kid, right after about like lawyers or something, and I wanted to see it because it had him in it. My dad was like, no, you won't like it.
He also did Event Horizon, which
Event
I liked.
Horizon was scary to me. There was a tornado in our theater.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he did like what's it like Knife in the Water.
I never saw him really.
But this movie was like, oh God, like he made all of them stars. Like,
I bet we could get them, by the way, for something. I really think so.
When they came back for the last Jurassic World, like all of them again, I was like, oh yeah. Then it was like, for me, it was just disappointing. So I'm not going to talk about, I don't like to talk about movies that I don't like. Yeah. But this movie, it's so, you will feel like you're a kid again.
It won't look cheesy either. It just looks... No. It looks like how you would, like, if you were in prehistoric times.
It feels so real, and then looking at what they did now with Adam Driver in this 65, 80 or whatever.
I lasted 6 minutes in that movie.
Right.
We don't have to get into it, but it's
Go
not
see Jurassic Park or rewatch Jurassic Park 30 years ago. Like, it holds up. It's an amazing movie. And hope you guys enjoy this, like, different SOS VHS episode. Yeah. And we'll see you guys next week.
Watch the classics, kids.
Bye.